Hey, what's up, guys? You're now listening to Devo with Uncle Theo. Today is day 284, and we're going to cover Matthew chapters 25 and 26. Now, remember, yesterday launched us into what is most famously called the Olivet Discourse, where if you look at chapter 24, verse 3, it says Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came to him privately, and he spent that entire chapter speaking to those two questions that they had. Now, here in 25, he's going to give a parable of the 10 virgins, and it says in verse 1, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in the jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Then the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out. No, they replied, there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourself. But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived, and the virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. Lord, they said, open the door for us. But he replied, truly I tell you, I do not know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. And so here's a perfect parable that teaches us, similar to what we learned yesterday, to endure to the end, to be watchful, to be sober-minded, and to be alert. And so we still have to be watchful, even if there's this unexpected long delay in Christ's coming. We still need to live in light of that coming and not become lazy, lethargic, or unprepared. There's so much we can learn from this parable of the 10 virgins. Then he gives another parable of the talents. This is a very familiar parable. It says, again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. And after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. And so you know the story. The man with 5 bags, he gained 5 more. The master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The same with the guy with 2 bags. He gained 2 more. But listen to the man who had 1 bag. He said, Master, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. And the master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. And so God teaches a strong lesson here. He says that for everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In the place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And so God shows how we're to value the things of the kingdom, and to take what he's graced us with in our gifts and multiply those things and pursue the blessings of God, the fruit of the Spirit and the light. But if we hide those things and go after worldly things, we're the person who gains the whole world but loses his soul. This parable isn't as much about doubling what you have more than being faithful over what you have and pursuing the right things, the things that God tells us to pursue, and not the things that the world tells us to pursue, which is vanity. So chapter 25 ends with Jesus further differentiating the sheep from the goat. And as we walk into chapter 26, we enter our last block, the 5th block. So what will we hear when we know we're entering a new block? That's right. Listen to verse 1 in chapter 26. When Jesus had finished all these words. So now he's done teaching for the last time, and now we're about to move back into narrative. And in this narrative, they plot to kill Jesus. It says that he said to his disciples, you know that after 2 days, the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over for crucifixion. Then the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together in the court of the high priest named Caiaphas, and they plotted together to seize Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they were saying, not during the festival, otherwise a riot might have occurred among the people. And so this is an interesting statement here, because a lot of people say that everybody rejected Jesus, and that wasn't true. This statement shows us this. This statement shows us that he had a true following, a remnant of people who would actually have revolted and rioted. This is why they had to do everything in secret and at dark, and had to violate all of their laws to do it. And so I think we give the people at that time a harder time than we should, because think about how they moved. They moved in the dark and at night, not just to commit evil, but because Jesus had followers who would have revolted and rebelled. So think about that times 500 plus. And we walk into the story where Mary anoints Jesus for burial. Judas betrays him, and the Passover is prepared and celebrated. Now, the interesting thing about the Passover is during the Passover Seder meal, you have cups passed around, and Jesus institutes Passover during the passing of the redemption cup. I want you to see all of the typology being fulfilled. Jesus dying around the time of Passover, showing that he's the true Paschal lamb to be sacrificed for the world. And so everything we've learned in Exodus, Leviticus, all of the signs that all of the work that they had to do in the sacrificial system, we said that was a sign pointer. That all pointed to this moment right here, and it's being fulfilled. Now, even in this moment, which is so beautiful, and this is why we celebrate the Lord's Supper to this day, to remember what Jesus did and how he instituted that. And he further wants us to continue not only to memorialize him, but also to deal with our own hearts, because he defeated the penalty of sin, but he didn't fully rid us of the power of sin. That's being defeated through sanctification. And so he's instituted this also for us to engage in self-examination, to make sure we're still in him, and to do that work daily until he finishes it and glorifies us, which obviously we know outside of time it is finished, but I'm speaking in time, how we're moving and breathing and living in this day. So also in this chapter, Peter's denial is predicted, and Jesus goes to pray in Gethsemane, and he's betrayed and arrested, and he has to appear before the Sanhedrin, and they falsely testify against him, and Peter denies him 3 times, just like he said he. And that's closing off chapter 26. And there's so many interesting things that happen here. Like, for instance, in chapter 26:65, the high priest says blasphemy, and he tears his robe, but he violates the law, which says that a priest shouldn't tear their robes. In Leviticus 10:6 and 21:10, it's so ironic what's going on here. They're trying to condemn Jesus, but they're further condemning themselves, and bits and pieces of this all throughout this story. And so read through these 2 chapters faithfully and see how Christ is moving so calculated, so wise, and he's fulfilling so many prophecies as he moves into his final hours, where he then will fully fulfill the prophecies of the suffering servant. We'll cover those on tomorrow. You guys take care and have a good day.